It's an excellent, excellent time to be a Formula One fan, because Formula One has been released from the clutches of the old gremlin Bernie Ecclestone for the last 2 years. Under the control of Liberty Media, Formula One has seen a massive turnaround in production quality and scope in how you can access the sport. So Bernie, in his old gargoyle ways, really avoided the internet, everything to do with the internet. And you got no coverage besides the race, which was on just a few channels. So being a Formula One fan in the US, really anywhere outside of Europe, means you just get to read headlines online and just every other week it's Hamilton won, Hamilton won, Hamilton won. And that's the extent of being a Formula One fan, is reading headlines. But now with Liberty Media, who recognize that YouTube and Instagram and Facebook are things that people look at, Liberty Media has lifted the veil on Formula One, where you get press conference coverage, you get interviews, you get pre-race and post-race analysis by Will Buxton in Paddock Pass. You get highlights leading up to the race. For example, for the Australian Grand Prix, for the couple of weeks leading up to the start of the season, you get like highlights from past Australian Grand Prix where crazy accidents have happened and strange. Another thing that Bernie Ecclestone really, he was really good at keeping Formula One like shrouded in mystery. And Liberty Media has given us this really good series of videos on YouTube called the Inside Story series. For example, the video that's going to be linked in the description of how Red Bull won the Hungarian Grand Prix. Fantastic video that shows how strategies are played out and how the how the team strategists on the pit wall and the team bosses and the engineers are all making split-second decisions to get the car across the line in first place. One of the biggest things is just being able to go to YouTube and the Formula One YouTube channel and see all these videos that cover just everything you could possibly want. And the build up and lead up to the first race of the season has been amazing. And the improvements year to year are great. For example, the track guide, where Daniel Ricciardo has a voiceover of an entire lap of the track, is already better than last year. Last year they used footage from the F1 2017-2018 video game. This year they're using live footage from a car doing a hot lap around the track. Fantastic. Excellent stuff. Okay, now that I've said all the wonderful things about Liberty Media and the current ownership of Formula One, time to talk about the shit. Room for improvement. The Netflix series Formula One Drive to Survive has me really thinking about how to improve Formula One, the sport. One of the biggest things that comes across in Drive to Survive is how intense of a sport it is and how this is everyone's passion. You get all this behind-the-scenes footage of the team bosses and the drivers and sort of their day-to-day operations and their interactions off track, which I think is fantastic. It's a raw look into Formula One. Liberty has given us a lot of insight into the drivers, but it still feels too sterile, too controlled. In the current way the drivers are allowed to interact with media, they come across as really, really dull people. Think about the kind of interactions that we get to see the drivers in. Pre-race interviews, pre-race press conference, post-race interview, post-race press conference, and the driver is done with the race, they go back to their team, they get to talk to their team for a little bit, and then they're released to the media cage, the little media box that they walk into, do a little circuit, answer a bunch of questions, and go back. And who's always with them? There's always someone, a PR person for the team, standing next to them with a little voice recorder, recording everything they say. Get rid of them! The only people that should be allowed in that media box are drivers and team principals, but they should never be together. We need raw driver interaction. Let me zero in on my issue with the interviews. Questions that the drivers get, they're all the same. So were you struggling for pace out there? Well, not really the result you were looking for this weekend. Do you think the car could go faster? Do you think you were lacking pace out there? Yeah, for sure. We're waiting for the updates and for the car. It could go faster, but it's getting a lot of understeer into turn 7 and I just can't get it right. They're all interchangeable questions. If you look at the interviews, it really could be any race weekend based on the questions that are being asked. Nothing is more frustrating with media questions than the repetitive media questions that Max Verstappen has received. Like, do you think you really need to rein it in? Do you think you crash too much? Blah, blah, blah. Enough. We watch the sport to see drivers like Max Verstappen, to see people just just send it up the inside and learn over time. Who cares if they have more maturing to do? They're the ones driving the coolest cars in the entire world. They're better off than all of us, so let them keep doing what they're doing. We need to see more emotion. That's one thing that the Netflix series does so well, is it brings out the emotion and the passion and the stakes of the sport and how the drivers and the team bosses care. And that's one thing that Formula One, when you watch it, doesn't always come across, is the passion. Another thing that Formula One could use is getting the drivers close to each other a little bit more. Verstappen-Ocon shoving match from last year, that was fantastic. One of my favorite moments was Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, where Schumacher rips off his helmet and his head sock as he's charging towards Coulthard's garage to chew him out. Fantastic. I'm not saying that we need drivers punching each other or violence or anything like that. No, not at all. But if we unleash them a little bit more of this passion will come out and it will feed the sport. Formula One has everything else. We have the coolest cars in the world, the biggest budgets, 20 people on the planet get to do this. One other area of improvement is the sport has a really steep learning curve. If someone's trying to get into it, there are a lot of rules and a lot of, little small details that have a huge impact on the outcome of a race that is difficult to understand when you first watch it. You need to really learn how to watch the sport. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes that the layman may not understand. And I think more on-screen graphics can help with this. The first thing that comes to mind is there's a lot of talk of undercuts. When the pit strategies come out and there's an opportunity for someone to overtake someone through a pit strategy, I think it would be useful to implement a graphic line that shows exactly where you need to be, ahead or behind the undercut in order to take advantage of or save yourself from being undercut. So for example, if Vettel and Hamilton are battling it out, Hamilton goes into the pits, then there should be a line in front of Vettel's car that shows where he is based on the estimation of where, the undercut might be. On a race weekend, the average time of a pit stop and how much time is taken up in the pit lane. So you just throw that average out onto the track and you have that line. So you can have a live view of Vettel going around the circuit, chasing that line. You can be like, go, 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 go. And when he gets past it, will it actually play out? And when you get that great camera angle of coming down the straight and then out the pit stop and then whoa. But right now, the graphics are good. There's a lot of information on the screen and they've been doing a really good job of conveying a lot of information. I think just to get more people on board, there's a little bit more that can be done. Of course, the racing, which is already being addressed, closing the gap between cars, creating more overtaking opportunities, that's all well and good. That will come with time. But in the meantime, Liberty has been doing such a good job of increasing the production quality and scope of Formula One that they're going to be, especially with the Netflix documentary, the Netflix series, there's going to be a lot of new people coming to watch the sport this year, next year, the year after, that I think it would really help, if we try and make the sport a little bit easier to watch for the casual observer. Kudos to Liberty for this year's YouTube rollout, for a feature on each team, and then the definitive guide for the 2019 season or whatever it's called. The build-up to this season has been perfect. Absolutely perfect as far as I'm concerned. Keep it up. Can't wait for this weekend. Forza Ferrari! Let's go!